Thanks, YouTube. This opportunity to sit down and talk to you all briefly because I made a statement or I responded to a tweet earlier today that I tried my best to get my point through in the little amount of time that they allow on the tweet, but I felt that maybe I raised more questions than I did answers in my response. And I wanted to take this opportunity to kind of elaborate a little bit on that so that I can get my point across. Um, I, for the first time in a few days, sat down on the computer and looked through my social media, through my Twitter feed, and I saw the announcements about what Governor Abbott is doing in the southern border, the border buoys that he is installing um, basically in the Rio Grande River near Eagle Pass. The thing was that he made the announcement, and then two things occurred. Number one, the what is known as the International Boundary and Water Commission, the IBWC, they came back and said, "Well, this is the first we're hearing of this. We're going to look into it. We're going to analyze." For you, those of you that don't know, that is the international government. I want to say international agency that oversees the U.S. border with respect to the Rio Grande River. Actually, all the borders in north between the U.S. and Canada, as well as the borders here in the southern part of the country, which is the Rio Grande and the Colorado River. More importantly, though, this agency is made up of two different offices. One is the Mexican governmental office, the other one is the United States. And this was all through a series of treaties that occurred. And I'm not going to get into those in details if I just to name a few. You have the Treaty of February 1848, the Treaty of July 1882, the Treaty of November 1884, the Treaty of May 1906, the Convention of February 1933, and you have the Convention of August 29th of 1963. And what I think is the most significant one is the Treaty of November 23rd, 1970. That one it basically resolved all the pending boundary differences between Mexico and the U.S., maintained the Rio Grande and Colorado River as an international boundary. The 1970 treaty also established procedures to avoid loss or gain of territory by either Mexico or the U.S., incident to future changes in the course of the river. Um, and it also basically gives the IBWC the authority to carrying out its provisions. I'm not going to elaborate any more on that because my point here was in the reply that I made to Governor Abbott was the fact that because no sooner did he begin this endeavor or begin the installation when already he's facing a lawsuit by an individual businessman in the state of Texas because this individual is saying, okay, you're threatening my business. I'm not going to be able to do what I do because this is going to affect my business because of the use of the Rio Grande. Not to mention, he said that it also it's against federal laws and whatnot. So, and this is where this is what got my interest because of the fact that he started talking about federal laws. This is a lawsuit in the state court. What'll probably happen is, with respect to that, anything that this individual in his lawsuit filed with respect to federal laws and international law may or may not have standing with which to fight those in the state court or in any court for that matter. So what may or may not happen is the lawsuit may get dismissed on those grounds, and the judge may say, okay, this needs to go to federal court because of these issues that are involved. Judge may also rule on, okay, is this going to affect the business or not? And then knowing the scope of the state courts here in Texas, that how conservative they are, it is probably all going to run in the favor of Governor Abbott. Now, my point to Governor Abbott was this. I told him, I said, whether or not you win or lose this lawsuit or you're successful in defending your state rights in this lawsuit, the issue here is not going to be that. It's going to be that this suit, his actions, the publicity coming from it, together will all serve as a catalyst for future legal endeavors, basically future legal lawsuits in the federal courts. Now, in the federal courts, we need to understand the ideals and concepts of what is known as constitutional jurisdiction. Constitutional jurisdiction is basically what it sounds like. It is the authority given by the U.S. Constitution to any state, any citizen, or any government official. The Constitution must authorize that individual to handle that specific situation. That is your constitutional jurisdiction. The state of Texas does not have constitutional jurisdiction under the U.S. Constitution, especially for all the stuff that they've done with respect to the southern border. Precedent shows, and most people are gonna be like, okay, you're gonna go with SB 1070 again. But the fact of the matter is that SB 1070, which was the catalyst for the lawsuit of U.S. versus Arizona, set a precedent that said, okay, a state cannot enforce immigration law. So that precedent counts against the state of Texas. The state of Texas has no jurisdiction to enforce immigration according to the Constitution because of the Supremacy Clause and the precedent between U.S. versus Arizona basically cements that. So what Governor Abbott is doing by implementing the border buoys, by doing what he's doing with Operation Lone Star, is basically usurping, if you want to use that term, the authority of the United States. Now, up to this point, the U.S. government has not really acted against the state of Texas or Governor Abbott. However, given what he's doing with these buoys, this may be the catalyst that will bring it forward, because now he's messing with a jurisdiction that he does not have authority in, and that is the U.S. waterways. The IB, what did I call it again? Let me look it up because I can never memorize it. The IBWC, which was set up through these treaties to govern and monitor these international waterways, is the authority that is in charge and provision to monitor them. This is an international co-op between both Mexico and the U.S. And unfortunately, the state of Texas cannot interfere with that set co-op or those set treaties between these two countries. So, in all legal instances, if this were to go to federal court, Governor Abbott and the state of Texas would stand to lose. Now, Governor Abbott and the state of Texas right now have had the luck, or have the, I would call it luck, I guess, that the federal government has not intervened in any of the actions that they have done up to this point. That's not to say that eventually they will not interfere. There is eventually going to come a tipping point where the federal government will have to, by no choice in the matter, intervene to stop the state of Texas in what they're doing. The question here is when is the time and date going to be when this occurs? So that's where we stand now. Back to the matter is, even if the state constitution backs Abbott in his actions, he has no federal authority to do what he has done and what he is doing at this point. That's my thoughts on the matter, and that's what I wanted to convey. I hope this has been informative in that respect. And we're gonna have to wait and see, how this plays out, whether or not the federal government is going to intervene or not. We'll just have to wait and see. Well, thank you for your time, and maybe I may get on here live later on. There's another set of news items that I want to really get into, and I hope to get into them here quickly, sooner, maybe late tonight if I do. Good evening. Have a good afternoon and a good weekend.